In last week's edition of my Succession Breakdown series, I looked into Season 2, Episode 1. I gave my thoughts on what was going on from a character standpoint, a storyline standpoint, as far as what I assumed was developing, and then also from a symbolism perspective, because I like to look into that as well. Now I am done with Season 2, but as I continue this series, I'm still going to go with the thoughts I had written down after viewing or during viewing each episode, because I still want this to be more authentic than looking back in 2020 and knowing what was going to go on, because anyone can do that. But I will say, before I get into episodes 3, or rather 2 through 4, a theme I saw developing early on in these episodes is that this season is more heavily focused on Logan Roy's bad side, and the way his behavior and his domineering personality impacts his children and causes them to really struggle with themselves. And of course, to find outlets to deal with repressed urges, to deal with feeling beaten down by him. And that is heavily developing throughout the season, even early on. Now, Shiv has been told prior to this episode that she's going to essentially be the number one. She's going to take over the company from Logan. She just needs to get some training in place. And there is a PR, or rather a takeover attempt, and they need a PR response. They need to start to strategize how are they going to counteract this attack, which was the same attack that Kendall had helped to initiate before ending up going to rehab before killing the kid. So Shiv starts to help to prove her worth by helping to plan out that response. She clearly shows that she's willing and able to run the response, and she hopes, I'm sure, that Logan will notice that and say, hey, she's real capable. So what makes this more interesting, at her doing more for Waystar Royco, is that Gil, the politician, the Bernie Sanders style politician, who she's working for as a political aide, is interested in her potentially becoming chief of staff. So it's a good character development strategy to let her decide between her family, between politics, between running a company, between being independent, because clearly she's made a career in politics and she's talented. Although Gil certainly knows he's no dope. He's well aware that Shiv is fully capable of screwing over her father, who Gil hates, who Gil wants to essentially regulate. And then Kendall and Roman are going at it still. So Kendall's in a rough situation because he turned on the family. Roman did not, even though he can be a pain, even though he can cause PR issues like the Japanese rocket explosion, the old failure to launch situation I spoke about. And they have a boardroom meeting. Well, really, it's in a boardroom. It's really just Kendall, Logan, and Roman. And they're discussing what to do with Valter. Valter is the company that Kendall wanted to buy. It was sort of his way to get into technology, to help diversify what the company was doing, to move it into the future, is symbolically what was happening. And Roman is given the ability to kill the deal. He admits afterwards, more or less, that he doesn't know if it's a good deal or not, but he knows it's going to hurt Kendall. So when Logan gives him the chance to kill the deal, just like when he was deciding if he wanted to vote his dad off the board or not, he calls Roman Romulus. And once again, Romulus is one of the mythical founders of Rome, kills his brother Remus. A very fitting thing to call someone before they once again symbolically kill their brother. Something I also learned recently is that Romulus Augustus was, I believe, the final emperor, or one of the final emperors of ancient Rome. And he basically oversaw its collapse. So that may be symbolically what's going on here, but I think it's more of the Romulus and Remus and killing your brother. The next episode, they have an executive hunting trip. They go to what they say is Hungary. I don't know where it was really filmed, but they do a pig hunt, feral pigs, it appears to be. They say they go to Hungary because it's one of the only places you can shoot something and nobody cares, I think is what they say. I don't know what that's a reference to. It's like, Hungary is not Siberia. It's not like this desolate place. It's a pretty developed country, a lot of history, one of the leading countries in Europe historically. So I don't understand what that reference was to, but either way, it's an interesting episode. It's a very dark episode. Logan publicly humiliates the executives in front of each other. He makes them play this game called Boar on the floor, where they like kind of snort around like pigs. And that's symbolically, it's aside from humiliating them and making them feel like animals, he loves the idea of like it's almost like him. He's a pig in slop watching these people fight over each other for power that he ultimately controls. It's like a really sick thing. And again, this season shows him becoming, or rather his dark side really coming out more, even more so than it did in the first season, which it was evident in. What you see also in this episode is that Kendall is very clearly more suited to being his father's sycophant, his father's number two, his father's mouthpiece, a defender of his dad. He lacks what in boxing, when I used to box, coaches would say you can't teach killer instinct. You can teach a kid, you have a kid with a lot of talent, but when you notice an opponent is hurt, when you smell blood in the water, if you don't have the instinct to go in for the kill, to knock a guy out after he shows weakness, you can't teach that. You can't say, hey, this is what you look for. It's something innate, that killer instinct, which is going to come up again in this season. But it was evident here that this is a better position for him. Kendall seems to be relishing being able to tell people what to do, even though he's basically relaying his father's messages. So it's an interesting development for Kendall. I know a lot of people seem to hate the Kendall character. I think it's a testament to the actor because he is very dislikable. It's like, stop being so weak, stop being dumb, stop being reckless. You want to yell at the TV at sometimes and stop being such a sycophant, be your own man. But he's in a really tough position. And also the character shows what can happen when you have a super domineering authority figure, which his father absolutely is. One other thing that's very interesting that I noticed, and I think they explain it, but the explanation isn't deep early on in season one, is Logan in this episode refers to Shiv as Pinky. And I like that because I remember having pets growing up. You go to the pet store, they have these tiny little mice, and they were used for snake food or maybe for other lizards too. And they were little babies and hairless, tiny little things, and they'd call them pinkies because their skin was pink. So it may have to do with like snakes being around and Shiv being fed to snakes or something. I don't know if that's a reference that he's going for, but I do like it. That's not an accident, you know. And one other thing I noticed in my first edition of this is I said the name Shiv. Symbolically, one of the obvious things is a shiv is something you stab someone with. A shiv is also something that is sharp, and Shiv is absolutely sharp. She's really smart. She's really capable. She's really cagey. She's very much her father's daughter, and that becomes more evident in episodes like this and as we go forward. She's, maybe untested, but clearly is showing her abilities, and the dad trusts her. So then in the next episode, something that happens where I was talking about the father's behavior leading to the kids to have to find outlets for things they're suppressing. Kendall starts to steal things. So like in two episodes prior, in episode 2, he steals what looks like batteries, or maybe like maybe they say it's jewel pods, or like vape pods, or whatever it is, what you smoke vapes with. Clearly I don't vape, so I don't know, but I think that's what he's stealing. But he steals it and just throws it out, and eventually they say, hey, in episode 4 they say, we've noticed that Kendall's been stealing, we'll figure it out internally. But why is he stealing? He's worth, we know, at least $500 million in stock. I'm sure he's been compensated tremendously over the years for being a senior guy at Waystar Royco, financially, with benefits, everything. So he's not in need of money. So why would he steal? Well, the answer is he would steal because he is being beaten down by his father. He's being put in this position where, even though he's not probably capable of running the company yet, if ever, he feels he is, and his father not allowing him to do so is leading him to doubt himself, and he internalizes the pain from that, and the outlet he finds is stealing something. So it's like he doesn't need to steal, but some people become kleptomaniacs, and I'm sure there's an interesting background to that. But for him, I think it's the ability to do something without someone's approval. So he's so under his dad's thumb that just to steal something little, not to use, not to sell, not to profit from in any way, but just to steal and throw out and get away with it, to do something he thinks no one will catch him doing, even though eventually they realize, is empowering to him in a way. And for Shiv, a way for her to sort of get out from under her father's thumb or under his shadow even is she does things like she cheats on her fiance and then husband, and so that's an outlet for her. And we'll get into how Roman's sexual issues are leading to him trying to find outlets, which becomes sort of like a funny thing going on in the show. Although what I will say is, as we get into Roman's sexual proclivities, that seems like something much more that Kendall would do rather than Roman, but I'll talk about that in a future episode. So again, I'm now up to next episode. We'll be starting with episode 5 of season 2, and we'll keep chugging on from there. If you're watching this on Instagram, please follow my page. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our page. If you're watching this on my website, haydencopser.com, please make sure you put your email on the subscribe list. Do not send out, I do not send out emails. I don't email blast you. It's really just good for me to know, or if I have something new coming out, to notify you. It's not to get you to buy stuff. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.